Say. Hey, Candace, what did you think of Elizabeth Warren? She obviously was trying to appeal to the kids in the audience by bringing up Kanye and Beyonce and POTUS as well. What did you make of it?
It just makes me want to cringe all the time. I mean, this is quite frankly always what the Democrats do. They pander in every single regard. You can't tell me that she could name even one Kanye West album or that she could name even one Beyonce album, and one of them is self-entitled. So I'm telling you, it's an absolute joke, and it's interesting to me that she goes into a crowd of people and she assumes that everyone she's speaking to is a Democrat. These are the same assumptions that they made during the 2016 election, and they were wrong.
Well, it is Massachusetts.
It is Massachusetts, that's right. And even if you're in a crowd of people that might be overwhelmingly blue, it does not mean that every single person there understands your jokes or thinks that they're funny. Quite frankly, there are likely some students there that were insulted by her jokes. They should just deliver what people typically do during a commencement speech, something that inspires children in their lives, something that's largely positive, not taking stabs at pop culture that they don't even understand that culture entirely.
If only they could actually do that. So she's not the only one making the college tour rounds. Hillary Clinton as well at Yale, and House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi. Take a listen to a little of what they had to say.
What's happening right now goes to the heart of who we are as a nation.
We have many challenges facing us.
I say this not as a Democrat who lost an election, but as an American afraid of losing a country.
Today, it often feels as if America's greatness and goodness is clouded by ugly language.
Today, as a person, I'm okay.
We cannot allow the negative attitude to be normalized or accepted.
No, I'm not over it. I still think about the 2016 election.
Candace, talk about inspiring.
I mean, she is just completely lost it. People tend to question Donald Trump's mental health. When are we going to start to ask some serious, hard questions about hers? Seriously, woman to woman, Hillary Clinton, you have got to move on. This is not even about politics anymore. It's not healthy to hold on to something like this whatsoever. She says that she's a strong woman. What sort of a strong woman is not over this a year and a half later and is still crying about the election, blaming people and pointing the finger? This is not an example of a strong woman.
Well, she did say that she made mistakes. That's the first time I've ever heard her say that.
That took a year and a half for her to even admit that. But you have to understand that she is not an example of a strong woman. She was not equipped to be the first female president of the United States.
So, Candace, a couple of things. Number one is from you, when you came out with that statement that went viral, and since that time, what's your life been like? And have you heard from the White House about moving forward with possible going there on a legitimate race roundtable? Have you heard any more about that, or are we just going to do you think that moment has passed?
Oh, that moment has not passed whatsoever. We are in talks with the White House all the time, and what we are doing and what we are planning is so much bigger than I think what people are even expecting. I'm doing this with Turning Point USA. The White House will, of course, help us and facilitate all of our needs. We're going to cause an entire movement in this country, and we've been warning the left, and we've told the Democrats, we are tired of being your victims, okay? We are ready to exit this narrative as black individuals being the victims that they use every 4 years for votes. I'm going to inspire a national movement that we hope inspires people internationally to understand that there is no value in being a victim and there is only value in being a victor.
Are you still talking to Kanye West? What is he saying?
Absolutely. We're still emailing, and he's put me in touch with some other hip-hop artists that I am scheduled to meet with and do some on-camera work with.
Well, but not only people you agree with, right?
Right. I read a story over the weekend that said that a number of hip-hop artists were being asked by other hip-hop artists, don't show up at the White House.
Yes, I'm not sure how true that was. I did read that about Meek Mill, and that's unfortunate if it is true, and it's exactly what I talk about. Essentially, my idea is that black people are not free to do what they want or not free to think what they want, that there are these confines that we need to break out of, and we need to stop being afraid of being demonized in the media if we do something that could ultimately help black people. Meek Mill should have showed up to the Prison Reform Summit. It was a great day, and it was something that he could have definitely used his voice to help us get some laws passed.
Yeah, meanwhile, Spike Lee blasted the president from another country last week, so the beat goes on.
Candace,
Absolutely.
You're always an inspiration to us. Always good to see you. Have a great Monday.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, see you.
If we encounter journalists that don't get their facts straight by design, don't follow basic standards of journalism, purposely skew stories to fit their own political dialogue and what they want the message to be, we're going to continue to call them out on that.
And when The Hollywood Reporter was working on a column examining whether Avenatti was helping his career more than the cause of his porn star client, the author says, he called me up and became somewhat menacing. At one point, he called me an a-hole with an agenda and accused the lawyers I had spoken to of being jealous of his success. Joining us now to analyze the coverage in Houston, Kristen Tate, a columnist for The Hill and author of How Do I Tax Thee? And in New York, Jessica Tarlov, senior editor at Bustle and a Fox News contributor. Kristen, what's your take on Michael Avenatti, who's been constantly on CNN and MSNBC, now making these threats against journalists?
It's despicable. Avenatti is a partisan hack who's just become completely addicted to TV like a drug, and these networks continue to give him shameless coverage, even though he often doesn't even have anything new to say. CNN put him on their network 74 times in recent weeks. He is now that network's most ubiquitous guest in its history. That speaks volumes about CNN's priorities.
Yeah.
He's been on MSNBC 54 times. I mean, this media circus, it's really a distraction. And I don't think it does any justice for Stormy Daniels or the law. This is really about Avenatti getting as much media coverage as he can,
well,
so that he can get his own TV
he's
show.
Certainly getting that. Oh, the thing about the TV show, just briefly, New York Times reported that a show had been pitched to CNN and MSNBC
Right.
starring Avenatti and Scaramucci, but both of them have indicated that's not happening. All right, so, Jessica, Avenatti, you know, is doing a job for a client, but he acts offended that journalists would look into his own background, his own business record, when he's made himself such a front and center player.
Yeah, he shouldn't be surprised by this at all, and that's completely within their rights. And what journalists should be doing at this point is looking into a major news story here. I think obviously he's getting himself press, but he is right when he says every time I'm on TV, I am talking about Stormy Daniels, his client. And he is raising an incredibly important issue here with the payoffs here, the hush money, and then whether there was intimidation. He has now said that there could be 2 other women who may come forward. He's continuing to vet them.
Okay,
and
on that
I know
point,
that
let me jump in. On that point, when he just makes one of these unsubstantiated claims, there may be 2 more women who allege that they had affairs with President Trump. Instead of the anchors saying, yeah, what proof do you have, most of them at least, they say, oh, tell us more.
Yeah, no, I think that he should. I assume that he will get to that point. I personally would not have led with that. But for people to say that he's just on TV to promote himself, he does have a very specific agenda which relates directly back to his client and what President Trump did. And those who say he hasn't accomplished anything, he got the president to admit that he had been lying. Remember when Donald Trump said, this didn't happen, I didn't pay, I don't know this person. Now the president has to admit it, had to admit it just last week after Rudy Giuliani kind of led us there and said it's coming. And Rudy Giuliani, in fact, even said there could be other women. So we'll see what happens there, but he should not be attacking journalists like this. He sounds Trumpian when he does it. He can go on TV, talk about his client, talk about the real issues here, but don't attack journalists for doing their job.
Kristen, quick thought.
It's completely irresponsible for this man to go on TV and make these unproven claims. But if you want to talk about real issues, the networks, while they busy themselves covering this Avenatti character, they're completely glossing over the issues that actually do matter to the American people, like immigration and the economy. Only 23% of Americans are interested in this Stormy Daniels story. I think this is really a story about the media and the narrative that they're trying to push and their anti-Trump resistance movement.
Well, you know, one of the reasons it seems so one-sided is that Michael Cohen isn't talking, and the lawyer for Michael Cohen isn't saying anything much either. So there's been a whole lot of Avenatti. All right, let me come back to this question about the president's tweet calling White House leakers traitors and cowards. Now, this all started with a leak about White House communications aide Kelly Sadler making the joke about, or the crack about John McCain dying. And I can report exclusively that in an Oval Office meeting with the president, he asked her what happened, and he asked her, are you done apologizing? She'd already apologized to Meghan McCain, the senator's daughter. Do you want to apologize more? And she said she did not want to apologize more, and the president agreed with that. So, but the president, who so often talks about fake news, is now acknowledging that White House leakers are a real problem for him. Jessica.
Oh, well, he's actually been acknowledging this for quite some time. It's one of his favorite narratives, in fact, that people are taking private information about him and his administration, exposing it, and also getting it wrong.
Right,
it
but he
seems
talks
like
about
they did
made-up
with the
sources
Kelly
and
Sadler.
made-up sources. And some of these sources are not made up. They're real people who work at 1600 Pennsylvania.
Right. That doesn't make them official traitors. Obviously, that term means something very specific, but we know that this is just Trump language where he uses the first accessible word to describe them. I think the leaks are dangerous, especially when they relate to national security. But he needs to think about the fact that people who work for him are so disgusted with what's going on, are so disturbed by the content of their meetings and the content of the policies and what this administration is doing that they are going to the press.
You know, I write a lot about these self-destructive leaks in my book, Media Madness, and I do think the president has every right to feel betrayed by people who are either on his payroll or in his orbit, Kristen. And of course, journalists are going to gobble up these leaks when they either advance the story or often they make either White House officials or their boss look bad.
Absolutely. The leaks are infuriating. However, Howie, I think that when Trump talks about the fake news media, he's misdirecting his anger in this case. The leaks are not the fault of the media. They represent a major problem inside of the White House. It's very easy for Trump and his supporters to scream fake news when there's an inconvenient leak. However, a lot of these supporters need to acknowledge that the leaks are coming from Trump's own hand-picked team. You know, I love Trump's unconventional governing style, but there's something to be said for some discipline. I think the White House needs that right now. And Trump needs to incentivize his own team to be loyal to him and stop the leaking.
A lot of White House officials have tried to impose that sense of discipline. Great discussion.
Best of
Jessica
luck.
Tarloff, Kristen Tate, thanks very much for being here
Howie.
this Sunday.
Thanks.